can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie of the MHRT Network. We are already kicking off the show here with a movie reference because that's kind of the way we like to roll here on the podcast. As Alex knows, I think we literally went almost an entire year with every podcast episode with at least one movie reference in it. It was great.
Oh yeah,
like for sure. Yeah, 100%. Anyways, guys, 100%. So we got a great show for you today. A lot of review and analysis of the various games, as well as some, team news and that kind of stuff to kind of cover for each of us. We're going to go and jump right into the recap after we do a quick round of intros. If this is your first time joining the show, welcome. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, go hit that like and subscribe button there at the bottom of the channel. Helps us greatly. The whole FTA thing for the algorithm. Like, comment, share, subscribe. The whole mantra there. Over directly here to my left is the one, the only, the real Alex Givens. You can go ahead and catch his content in two different places. One is on Arrowhead Addict, all written stuff, fantastic stuff, just to keep yourself apprised of the enemy or fan, if you are in fact a Chiefs fan. And directly after this podcast, you can catch Alex and Coach on the Lightning Fast Fantasy podcast over on the Lockdown Defense YouTube channel. Of course, Coach is a friend of the show, former used to sit right down below here where Mr. Garcia is right now. That goes right into our intro. Robert, our resident Chargers fan, and doing his best Captain Obvious impression. Right here live on air, representing his Los Angeles Chargers. Dude, you walked into that one. You just don't have to.
I was going more like Special Officer Doofy from Scary Movie.
Yeah. That works too. Or
reporting for duty.
Reporting for duty. Duty. Or directly
over. No man.
Yeah. Directly down.
What
here
is that? My ass. Sorry.
Oh, it's such a funny movie.
You have to complete it.
Honestly, such a funny movie. I do. The crazy thing is, there's a whole generation now that hasn't really seen those.
Has no idea what we're talking about right now.
It is so like demoralizing because
disappointing.
That whole
the
era,
spoof era, they don't really do.
Yeah, the parody era, man. I'm doing like they used to.
Yeah. So really, the last kind of parody movie that I actually saw was a movie called Lady Ballers. And that was a complete throwback to those old 2000 kind of 99, 2000 spoofs there, where it was just like, I still know what you did and like all that kind of stuff, where they did like the stupid stuff. Oh, it was great. But anyways, directly here over to diagonally down is Mr. Jack Hanna representing his Las Vegas Raiders. Great insight for one of the more kind of hated and beloved teams in the NFL. Polarizing, I think, is a good way of putting it. In the NFL,
just depends if you're a Raider fan or not. Love it if you are, hate it if you're not.
And as much as the AFC West opponents would love to completely slam your team, it is pretty undeniable that there's at least two guys that you currently have on your roster right now that they ought to be all pros, and we'll just leave it at that. And so obviously I'm talking about Crosby and Bowers, but we will get right into their games and what we saw from those guys on your team shortly. I thought we best quickly start off just because we kind of ran through the Falcons recap for my Denver Broncos last week pretty quickly. I didn't have a whole ton to say other than some pointed comments about Justin Simmons, which I think we should be discussing on the show today. This was his potential revenge game where he could have done something and didn't. The Denver Broncos pretty much just absolutely just steamrolling the Falcons, which again is kind of where I was struggling in my score predictions for last week, which is I didn't quite know which iteration of the Falcons we're going to get because there hasn't been enough runway between the Saints loss that happened the week prior and when the Denver Broncos played them, because for the earlier part of the season, the Falcons looked like a pretty competitive team, actually, in terms of how they were playing and their scores. So I think what we saw from the Denver Broncos was, at least from a personnel perspective, we matched up very well against them and pretty much exerted our will in that game. So a few kind of
what was the final score on that, Richie, for the people that don't know?
I'll be honest, I looked at it in the third quarter. I was like, I won, and that was about it. That's all that really mattered. My big thing was just reviewing the actual play in the play-by-play breakdown that I kind of watched prior to the show here. And I'll be honest, I didn't even bother looking at the final box score.
38-6.
38-6. There we go. My biggest thing was looking at the actual plays on the field as opposed to what the box score ended up with. I was really, really interested to see how Bo Nix rallied after I don't say a regression, but certainly a game that at least led his team down the field against the Chiefs, and probably, by rights, we should have won that game with that last-minute field goal. Obviously, a fantastic special teams play from Alex's team there. But, generally speaking, when your quarterback leads you down the field and gets you within 30 to 35 yards for what is arguably in today's NFL a chip-in, right? Like at 35 yards, you don't expect to lose that game. And I think we were talking about the percentages last week on the show. Like it was like 99% at that point that the Broncos were going to win it, and they managed to lose. So we obviously saw that occur the week prior for my Denver Broncos. And then the week before that, we actually ended up with back-to-back losses for the Broncos, where we ended up getting absolutely just destroyed by the Ravens, which was a game that I was talking about earlier in the season, even before the season started, where I was like, I'm very concerned with the Ravens. They are a personnel group that I don't believe my Broncos match up well against. But going into the game, I did think we were going to beat the Ravens because of some of the improvements that we had made on the team. And of course, I was mistaken, which is fine. So then the question becomes, is which version of my Denver Broncos are we going to see on the field against the Falcons? Are you going to see the fold like a tent against the Ravens version? Are you going to see a competent version of our team like we saw against the Chiefs, where we probably should have won that game? You just never know which version of the team you're going to get. And that's part of what you get with a rookie quarterback, right? Is that you get a rookie quarterback that's going to make those mistakes, that's not going to make the adjustments that they should sometimes. And some games they do better than others, recognizing things, and we'll see. So either way, we saw some interesting things that I want to throw over to you guys about. We saw Justin Simmons get run at multiple times in that game and get owned. Right? He just got absolutely steamrolled in the run game, which was exactly what I've been talking about in this show. I mean, Alex knows that I am a fan of Justin Simmons off the field. No, I'm a fan of Justin Simmons off the field, but on the field, I just think he's overrated and kind of took away from what the team would have otherwise been able to do with the contract that he was given. And even on my network, I am an outlier, obviously, in terms of, those comments. But at the end of the day, he certainly was not the big difference maker on that Falcons defense when he was there. And that kind of further proves my point in terms of what I was saying and what I have been saying all along, which is, the top tier guys find ways of making differences on the field. You look no further than Khalil Mack, or down that away, you look at guys like Max Crosby. Even though Max Crosby may not be on a team that is lighting the league on fire, there is no denying when you see him on the field, he is making a heck of a difference, and he is the reason why the Raiders are even staying competitive in certain games. We just didn't see that with Justin Simmons on the field with the Falcons. And obviously other teams have other guys in various positions that are, that guy, obviously like Mahomes, for example, with the Chiefs and whatnot. But the point being is, if you're going to pay a guy a salary that's in the upper 1 to 2 in the league, you need to see that production at that level as well. Otherwise, I hate to use the word overpaid, but that's basically the whole point, is that they need to play up to their contract, not below it. And so that's my general assessment of kind of what I saw from Simmons when he was with the Broncos. we saw a little bit more of the same there. And then we actually matched up a lot better against the D line with the Falcons than I thought we were going to. They were not really able to get a ton of pressure into the backfield against the Broncos. And that allowed for both pass and run to both be incredibly effective. Typically, most teams kind of suck at one and do really well at the other, or, you know what I mean? Like most teams are like good at like the run stopping, but then suck at pass pro, or can't get to the quarterback, but, you know, maybe they're good run blocking or something, right? Like, you know,
look at the Ravens. The Ravens are like the number 1 rushing defense and the number 32 passing defense.
Right. That's what I'm saying, right? Like you typically have a team that's like super good at one and like maybe not great at another, or maybe like middle of the pack in both, because at least like they've tried to evenly spend their resources, but they're kind of a jack of all trades but master of none. And it just seems that the Falcons were just master of none. Like they didn't evenly spend their resources. They just weren't that good, which is unfortunate because, you know, like we were saying before, even if you're just a football fan, you'd like to see at least something competitive on the field to, you know, make it entertaining.
I'd argue watching your team win by 32 is pretty entertaining.
My point is for anyone but me. Like, of course, of course, I want to see my team dog walk the other team that we're playing against. Like that's.
But as a neutral football fan.
But as a neutral football fan, like, you know, the Broncos Chiefs game, for example, as a neutral football fan, was a legitimately entertaining game.
Right.
I'd
argue our game this past Sunday night was
right. Like that's what I'm saying. Is like that's a legitimately entertaining football game. Yeah. Of course, for me, I'm like, sweet, kill him. Right? Like, just kill them. Like put 90 on them. I don't care. Like, just do it. But obviously, as a football fan, you kind of want to see something that is a little bit more like nail biter to the end, like, you know, last minute walk off field goal, right? You know, that kind of stuff. And we certainly
you know, it was close for the first few minutes. First 5 minutes. First quarter, it was 7-3. That's pretty close.
Right.
Yeah. What was it?
Right.
Literally, they scored second. They got another field goal with about 3 minutes left before half, and then never scored again.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So, they just dominated them. I didn't watch the game. You know, like I just saw glimpses of what was shown on Red Zone. But obviously, looking at the stat sheet after the fact, I mean, pretty clear. You know that Robert was right. Bo Nix has certainly developed at a pretty nice rate, and you know, I think this was kind of a coming out party, for lack of a better word, I guess.
Thanks for taking my words.
But you know, I mean, he comes out. He's what 28 for 33, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, and I mean, didn't really rush the ball, but I mean,
145 QBR.
Yeah, talk about a leap and bound difference as a passer than what we've seen in the past, you know, few weeks from him. And honestly, I guess, you know, at this point, probably Atlanta's defense is a little bit of a big fraud. But many people thought, and at least at the beginning of the year, they were a pretty effective pass defense. I mean, they are stacked to some degree in their secondary, and
they got names.
They got names. AJ Terrell's a pretty good corner, but Jesse Bates and Simmons are both kind of the same guy in that they just
a little overrated.
They want the pick. You know, they get the pick. But I mean, for him to go out and do that.
Did you guys just call Simmons overrated?
I didn't say
well, you've been spewing that propaganda for years.
You know, I'm ready to admit it.
I can only resist the Kool-Aid for so long, you know. Eventually, I want to know what's in there. I'm just kidding, but
no, you don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I when I saw the final score, I would have thought, oh, this was like, I bet Javonte Williams just went off at like the Saints game, where they were just able to run the ball, keep the possession, and just it basically bled out the Falcons' offense. But I mean, honestly, time of possession was pretty equal. Total plays was equal. They just went out there and offensively dominated them. So, that's got to be as a Broncos fan, you got to feel pretty good to kind of see the, all-encompassing moment here in Week 11 that your quarterback is
legit.
He was the big reason for winning the game. Compared to just not losing it for you.
Yeah, I even saw some stats. With Bo Nix versus the kid from Daniels. From Washington.
Daniels. Yep.
Yeah, and they're looking pretty. Legit. Some of the stats are actually looking better. So right now he's got a chance, for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. Bo Nix, as it stands right now, statistically in the last 5 games, if I'm not mistaken, has actually outplayed Jaden Daniels, and he's left Caleb Williams. He's left Caleb. He's left him in the rear view, right? So now. Can that sustain itself? We'll see. We'll see.
Early results.
I'll take a little regression this week. I'll take that.
Yeah, but even if it's not sustainable this year, I mean, you've seen those flashes that he can be the guy. And especially in your rookie year, that's what you need. You need kind of the affirmation of okay, here's the guy that we can build around for 5 years, knowing it's pretty cost controlled. Now let's shift our focus to other areas of need. And
realistically, you're not going to be like an insanely built team next year because you're still working out the Wilson contract.
No, Robert, that's wrong. Denver's going to have $80 million in cap next year.
They're going to be juicing. This was really the only bad year.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So are they not taking a dead cap hit next year?
We are, but we took they
took a lot of it this year.
We took an $85 million cap hit in the 2024 season.
Jesus Christ.
So first off, we have successfully set an NFL record, which I'm sure is the one that the Broncos would love to be in the record books for. We have won the dead cap lotto jackpot in terms of eating the worst or most amount of dead money.
Wow.
I suppose the benefit of that is that, those Walmart pockets are deep, so they can absorb that from a financial hit perspective and not really, bat an eye. So there's that. But
that's why groceries are so expensive now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
They're getting it back on us. It's all because of Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
man.
You can blame Russell Wilson.
Damn it, Russ.
Yeah.
There's a trick. There's a connection there somewhere. I'll find it.
Yeah. But in terms of what is it? In terms of the the game and all the other things that you're just talking about there, what I need to see is Bo Nix continuing to progress, but doing so against teams that he is less familiar with and or is either outmatched or evenly matched with. So I would actually argue while the Falcons game he dominated and did very well, that's cool. I just believe that the Broncos were just the better team on the field that day. I actually believe that the better, not necessarily the best game, but I think the better game for Bo was actually against the Chiefs, where the Chiefs know more about the Broncos just because we play them twice a year. Mm-hmm. And Bo still came out and went down the field and got the Broncos into field goal position. I actually think that drive, I think Russ going down the field, Nick's going down the field and getting us into that field goal position, I actually think was perhaps more of a defining moment for him, even though it didn't work out.
Yeah. But then, to double down and come out the next week and scorch earth.
Yes, sure.
It's almost back to back. You've seen it twice now. So,
yeah, I think this was obviously a huge positive, obviously, but the biggest reason was you expected to defensively dominate because your defense is just that much better. And I never believed in Kirk So I thought it was going to be a pretty, decent margin win, 10 points, 13 points. But I just didn't expect your offense to explode for as much as they did. And I mean, obviously, as a Broncos fan, that has to be extremely exciting to see. And like we said, it's a defense that, although it's not on paper name brands, they got name brands on that defensive line, that secondary. So although they're not playing well, it's still good talent he's facing, and to see him not only better that talent, but to straight up just, I mean, like Alex said, scorch earth them. I mean, you guys are firmly in that. I mean, you guys are firmly in a playoff spot right now. I'm fairly certain you guys control your own destiny. I'm pretty sure us two and the Ravens, all in the wild card spots right now, control our own destinies. Because I think the next closest team is the Bengals, and they're what, 4-7. Colts, I think, maybe. But I mean, as long as you guys keep this up, and barring a late season collapse, I see no reason why you can't make the playoffs in year one. And this is what you wanted. If you make the playoffs, this is why. I mean, even if you don't, but especially if you do, this is why you start Nix when you do, right at the beginning of the season, when you draft him as high as you do, because you don't want to wait and find out him specifically, because he's already older as it is coming out of college. So you don't want to waste any more time letting him sit behind somebody, and that's just
he definitely drinks IPAs. He's that old.
So I mean, yeah, this is, I hate to admit it, but this is, I mean, exciting times.
Oh, you want to admit it? Come on.
No, I mean, I'm excited for my. Yeah,
I'm excited for my. Say you're right.
I did potentially say kind of earlier in some of our earlier shows that
I'm not
our division,
excited.
Our division had a chance to have 3 teams go to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. I don't think people expected it to be these 3, but it is what it is.
I actually see the Broncos having a reasonable shot against the Raiders, the Browns, the Colts, and likely winning those games.
Yeah, the Colts is a big one too.
Where I think the Broncos are going to be tested, but I still think we win. I think we beat the Bengals. So we have the Browns, Colts, and Bengals and Raiders. I think those are very winnable games for my team. I think where our biggest challenges are going to be is going to be the Chargers and the Chiefs coming up, again, interdivision. And this is, again, speaking to how all 3 of our teams have both competent coaching and quarterbacking now in the collective group.
And defenses.
And our defenses are all playing within the top 10 to 15, depending on which team and which scenario. And I think that just kind of goes to show that when you have that kind of even blend and a well-balanced team and a well-run team, that you can be competitive even if, it's like the Denver Broncos defense, right? A whole whack of names that no one knows, but they're still beating them. They're still beating opponents. Like half the dudes on the Broncos team, like going into the season, all the pundits were like, who? And my comment was, it's like, I'm telling you right now, I know a lot of these guys, and they were the second string guys or the third string guys from the year prior. But if you actually saw them play on the Denver Broncos roster, they did pretty well. Like they showed up and played well. Some of them got hurt, so they got knocked out. But when they were on the field, they played very well. And to simply discount them just because they weren't like, the Justin Simmons of the league who had their name put out there and whatnot, or didn't run like a Russell Wilson PR campaign for themselves. Who cares? Like,
no, they definitely seemed like they've overachieved, and it's everybody. It's not
a single guy. It's not one guy. It's
the whole thing. I mean, Denver's got the number 3 rated defense in the entire NFL. I mean, they're number 7 against the pass and 6 against the run. I mean, what you were just talking about, Richie, in the way of like one being good, one being bad, it is total consistent with your team. And that's the thing that's crazy about the whole AFC West. And I look at Kansas City, I look at the Chargers. You guys both have amazing defenses, as well too. And I will say Bo Nix is where he started from and where he's at right now. And again, contention, possibly for offensive rookie of the year. I mean, he's just leaps and bounds. It's just come up. It's amazing. So Robert, yeah, you're right.
He struggled in those first 4 games, right?
Robert was right.
But again, it's the first 4 games of his career. So he's grown. Like Max Crosby would always say, I want 1% better every day. Well, he's not doing 1%. He's doing 10% better every day for every game. So you got to tip your cap to him.
I definitely agree that he is outperforming where I thought he was going to be at this point in his career.
Me too.
The thing is that you still don't know if he would have still progressed if he hadn't played, or if you just don't know, because we haven't seen, we didn't see him not play. We only saw him play. So as an example, by week 5, Bo Nix started to kind of correct a couple things, but it took him until week 5. So then the question is that would he have noted different things and not made some of those initial mistakes in the first place? Or, again, this is totally hypothetical because we will never know, but there's a legitimate other side to that same coin, which is some guys learn best by throwing into the fire, turning up the heat, and saying, now cook. Other guys learn best by taking a step back and kind of broadly assessing the situation and then identifying where they likely would have made mistakes, course correcting them, and then they avoid the mistakes altogether so that they're coming into the game with this almost mental overconfidence. And at the quarterback position, because it's so mental, it's all processing power, right? It's how fast can I digest what's put in front of me to then make the right play and throw the ball in the right spot? So much of it is all processing power. And so I can appreciate both sides of the same coin. And the problem is that so many guys look at quarterbacks and say, throw him in right away, ignore all the things. And I don't necessarily think that's the right thing.
You're 100% correct. But the thing that, is unique for Bo is you got to look at your head coach. Bo does his style of coaching. That's the type of, and again, you got a head coach. That's his style of quarterback. It just meshes really, really well. I mean, they were kind of made for each other.
I agree. I actually will agree with that. I think that you have an older guy with a higher IQ. I think you had a little bit of that with Mahomes and Reed as well. I think Mahomes has a pretty high football IQ when it comes to touch and feel and that kind of stuff. And I think Reed responds well to guys I think Reed responds better to guys like Mahomes than guys say Michael Vick, because Michael Vick had athleticism, right? But he didn't necessarily have the intangibles that were outside of just I can run fast.
He did have a cannon.
I mean, he could throw the ball,
but he didn't have the
he had the tangibles.
Yes,
and I think that's. I think the proof's kind of in the pudding with that. I mean, you look at every quarterback Reed's had; they've been statistically good, but never able to get there. And then he gets Mahomes, and boom! I mean, boom! They're there.
Yeah, so, I think a lot of people underestimate that relationship that got developed that year Mahomes sat between him and Reed.
Well, yeah, that
how
too.
Much.
Well, I also think that a lot of people underestimate the relationship that developed on the team. Because as an example, when you're seeing a guy that's going out as a second stringer and making throws that your first string quarterback, that is making your it's evenchly the players are at some point,
he's got to get in there.
Oh, I think Chris Jones, there's an interview where he probably talks for 10 minutes about Mahomes' rookie year and how he was doing all of the left-handed throws, no looks, he was doing all of that to the first team defense every week as the scout team quarterback, and everyone was damn, this guy we're about to go to, this might be pretty cool.
Right. But that actually elevates the roster's confidence, right? Like, your backup is better than your starter. Yeah. Geez, Alex, that's a rough spot to be in.
It's not bad.
Yeah, yes, please sign me up. Like, we got Jack over here that's like, when does that happen for me, right? Like, sorry, no offense.
2025, hopefully.
Yeah, no, but like that's the whole point, right? Which is, when you would want to have an embarrassment of riches especially at the most important position on your team, the one that touches the ball the most, the one that has to make those important decisions, so that you can then kind of go on and do some great things. But overall, generally speaking, obviously the Broncos game was a bit of a blowout. Not a whole ton to kind of really speak about. I will say number 77, again, Quinn Miners, probably had one of his best games of his NFL career in that game. He just demolished people. And he kind of showed exactly why he's getting the contract that he's getting. Really, really liked the stuff out of him. We saw a few questionable things from our left tackle and a couple questionable things from the right tackle, but overall, again, some fairly decent play from the offensive line. And with that, we're going to throw over to Robert and talk about your game and go over that one, and then go over to Alex and go from there.
Yeah, like Alex said, this was a classic shootout. A very, very terrifying game for me when that second half rolled around.
Oh boy!
There was a solid probably like 10 minutes there where I was really contemplating, like, wow, this is it. There is no escaping the charging. This is just what we are as a fan.
This is our life.
Yeah, this is what life as a Chargers fan is going to be. Not even Jim Harbaugh, the great Jim Harbaugh, could come in and fix it. This is just who we are. This is what we do. And I was already thinking about having to come in here and just be like, well, I don't even know how to be excited for the rest of the season when that
you're already prepared.
I'm telling you,
speech.
I'm telling you, I was so like over it at that.
Robert, who hurt you in your life? Tell us.
This damn team hurt me. That's who hurt me over and over again. This team constantly hurts me.
Alex, do you have a couch?
It made it for the really exciting game. That was a wonderful win.
As a non-fan of either of those teams, as just like Richie was talking about earlier, the neutral fan was absolutely loving that game. Back and forth, like DZ said, a tale of two halves. Obviously, open up to that massive 21-point lead into halftime. This one half, like, one half scoring, one half not, is really getting old. We're 8th in the NFL in scoring in the first half and 29th scoring in the second half. That has absolutely got to change. That is inexcusable, and it ultimately will probably be the reason we lose, and assuming we make the playoffs, assuming this ship holds steady. And with the way we're playing right now, I want to say we will. I'd say we're a pretty safe lock for a wild card. I know. I mean, just the state.
Where's the sound? We need the sound.
No, the state of the AFC is the state of the AFC is just.
Let's not forget, Robert. I think, but 3 weeks ago, you said your team would go undefeated through this stretch of games. Then I mean, Arizona. So.
I know, but hey, we made it up winning here in Cincy. So this was the game. We went on a 4-game win streak. It was just not the 4-game win streak I predicted.
But it did break, a streak though, in a way of the Chargers giving up at the very end. So you guys kept fighting, and what a difference from another Notre Dame player in your secondary going out and having his backup come in.
Yep. Yeah, I was just getting to that. Yeah, I mean, that was a huge part as well with it. And I do want to preface all that by saying this, at that point in time, coming out of halftime, that was the most desperate team in the NFL were the Bengals. Their entire season was essentially on the line there. I think going into that game, they had a 22% chance of making the playoffs. With a win, it increased to 38, and with a loss, it dropped to 10. So, I mean, they were quite literally fighting for their playoff lives. And I know mathematically they're still in it, but realistically, that's going to be a real tough hole to climb out of. Obviously, you're not winning your division. And like I mentioned earlier, the AFC kind of after that playoff mark being you guys, Rich, it's pretty tight right now, pretty locked up. So it's going to be really tough for them to fight back in. But like I said, they were incredibly desperate. They had just gotten their guy back, T. Higgins, after he missed the last 3 weeks with injury. So, I mean, yes, we collapsed. Absolutely. I'm not going to just sit here and excuse, blowing a 21-point lead. That's obviously inexcusable, and that cannot happen. But it was also a fact of this team is just quite literally on the brink of their season ending, and they're going to do everything and anything. They were 3 for 3 on fourth down conversions. They were just fighting for their lives. So being able to withstand that and to still come away with a win after all that, and on top of that, have a game-winning drive. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge morale booster for this team, and I know that locker room was bumping after that win. I mean, it was, Herbert was absolutely perfect when he needed to be in that second half on that final drive. 2 amazing thrown balls to Ladd for a combined 55 yards. I think it was like 29 and 28 yards respectively to put us in field goal range. And then, not even needing to kick the field goal, J.K. Dobbins just running it in for that 29-yard touchdown and essentially icing it with 18 seconds left. And a lot of people were questioning, why didn't he go down? Why didn't you just run the clock out, kick the field goal? There is 2 games I want to point to you. Packers-Bears game this past week and the Broncos-Chiefs game last week. That is why you don't just settle for a field goal and you go for the kill with the touchdown. And I mean, it showed, even though McPherson missed his kicks, had he would have made both those kicks, you would have needed a touchdown in that scenario. So, it ended up working out. Although I did want to make a quick point, and just like Rich mentioned last week, I never really like to talk about officiating, but this week in particular, on both sides of the ball, for the Bengals and the Chargers, this referee crew was atrocious this game. The Bengals and the Chargers were the 2 lowest penalized teams in terms of total yards coming into this game. Bengals were actually also the lowest team with total penalties. They only had 44. Chargers were the 4th lowest with 48. So 2 very low penalized teams coming into this game. And there was a combined, where was it at? Combined 13 penalties for 106 total yards. Bengals had 8 of them for 56. Chargers had 5 for 50. Just atrocious calls on both sides of the ball. I mean, it in prime time, this is the referee crew you're putting out there. It's just like horrendous. Honestly, I was very upset with this referee crew. Not that it had a huge impact on the total outcome of the game, but just as a side note, that was rough.
I just have to say, I took a look at Ladd McConkey's. Sorry, I took a look at Ladd McConkey's Chargers photo. I had no idea Justin Timberlake played football.
Yeah, it's not like solo JT. We got NSYNC JT.
That's NSYNC days. That's going back. Yeah, like for sure.
Oh yeah. No,
he kind of curly kind of mop top thing going. He's got the short sides. He's got the kind of the
shape side. And his name is Ladd.
I mean, he's pasty white.
He looks like a lad.
It is
just a wee lad.
That's exactly what you got.
I love that we have a guy on our offense named Ladd, and we have a guy on our defense named Bud. It's just absolutely amazing. It's just the power of friendship that is putting this team.
Now, Robert, you have the 2025 or 2024 draft, depending which way you look at it, coming up, which means that you are now destined to draft a dude by the name of Bubba.
Yes. And he's going to be our center.
Like you just, it is a foregone conclusion. Just look it up, figure out who it's going to be, and that's who you're getting, right? So you're good to go.
I'm sure there's some Bubba coming out of the draft this year. But yeah, obviously, apart from focusing on the complete polar opposite halves we had, that first half might have been the best half of football I've ever seen Justin Herbert play. I mean, he was just absolutely phenomenal in that first half. 183 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He had 58 yards rushing. I know I already said it last week. That ankle is completely healed. I mean, the fact that he's able to do this now, I mean, he was our leading rusher this past game, even with that 29-yard,
Vic, dude.
Yeah, Justin Vick, Lamar Herbert, what I was calling him last week. I mean, this dude, I mean, he's insane, and it's crazy to say, but he's like slowly but surely entered his way into like the dark horse MVP candidacy, because he's our offense right now. The run game is solid, and J.K. Dobbins has been contributing much more than we anticipated. I think we expected to see kind of more half and half between him and Edwards, but he's obviously taken the reins as the lead back, and you'd love to see that. But Herbert he's the reason why this offense, he's the conductor. This offense goes whether he has to be playing good, and I know he had that fumble in the second half that basically brought this team or the Bengals back into the game, but it was kind of like a fluky fumble. The defender didn't punch it out. It was Herbert going down, and the knee just hit the ball at the perfect time. Like, I'm not getting mad at Herbert for that. I'll take that fumble 100 times out of 100 just with the type of player that Herbert is. I know those types of mistakes are fluky, and he's not a fumbling machine. He holds onto the ball relatively well. So I'm not worried about that. It just came at the worst time it possibly could have in that game. And so that's what made it just that much more excruciating. If that kind of fumble happens in the first half, I don't think anybody bats an eye at it, but it's the fact that the Bengals were rallying to come back. You're driving down the field about a score, and then that's when you fumble. So, I mean, just the momentum shift of that. When that fumble happened, that was really when I was like, oh, this is the same charging team that we've always known and hated for the last decade.
And then Harbaugh came over the hill. And he was like,
Well, Alex, in fairness, Robert then immediately went to his couch that he's gone to for the past 5 years. Thankfully for him, he's got this show, which starts every Wednesday, that he's then able to perhaps get his session in, so he's able to make it through the remainder of the week. Thankfully that wasn't needed this week, Robert.
Right.
In fairness, though, looking ahead to next week, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the Ravens for you guys.
Yep.
You may want to make some room on the couch for next week's show.
I'm fully expecting. Obviously, I'll get into that a little bit more later on in the show, but I'm fully expecting a loss this game. I think the winning streak stops here at 4. But I mean, just to kind of finish out this game, Chef Ortiz, man, this dude, I wanted to make a quick note of this. Ladd McConkey right now is 3rd in rookie receiving yards, obviously behind Brock Bowers, who's number 1, and Brian Thomas, who's number 2 on the Jags. But besides that, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have combined for 43 receptions, 480 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the season. Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston have combined for 65 receptions, 969 yards, and 10 touchdowns on the season. So for all the flack
that Johnston leading the league in touchdowns, or he's close.
No, I think he's second behind Chase.
I mean, that's still
but yeah, exactly insane to eat that he's even
his ass off after last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be behind Chase is wow. I'm really upset.
Especially for the guy that you guys all wanted to send to Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 3 touchdowns. He's got a
dude, I'm all for it. He's made me look like a genius in Dynasty because I drafted him Also in that league, I had to sub out tight ends because Laporta was out. Went with Disley, looked like even more of a genius. So.
Hey man, I said it last week. He was on pace to break his receptions and receiving yards record. He's already broken that with last week's game. So I mean, he's been insane on offense. But so got to give a shout out to Joe Ortiz. I mean, he's been ridiculous. And just one more time, really quick, a quick shout out to the defense. Obviously, I know they gave up 27, but 36 pressures as a team. That is that's a top 3 quarterback you're going up against over there, top 5. So I mean it.
-2
it is what it is.
Points. No.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that,
stinker, Alex. Dude. I rolled with him.
Listen, okay. I'm gonna blame you for that one for going up against probably one of the best offenses, but it is what it is. They played as well as you could expect against the most desperate team, as already mentioned in the NFL. They're easily the best team under 500 going into that week. They gave everything they had to try to salvage their season in that second half. But the important thing is they got the stops when they needed to, and they got the win, which is ultimately the biggest thing you need in a week in the game. So happy with that. And my defensive player of the game is Thule. Once again, I mean, this guy, he's just in Khalil Mack's absence, the way he's been balling out for us. I mean, 5 tackles, 8 pressures, 3 run stops over this 4-game. Oh, and obviously the sack and a half. Over this 4-game winning streak, he's got 22 total pressures, 7 sacks, which both are most in the league. He's arrived. I'm very, very happy to see him playing up to that level we expected him to. I also wanted to quickly mention, I said he was a UCLA kid last week on last week's show. I meant USC. I was thinking about Otito Ogbania, who was the UCLA defensive tackle we drafted. So I was just confusing those two. But yeah, USC kid. But yeah, very happy with his performance this week and got that dub.
Have one question for you.
Yeah, but that's like Bosa, Mac, who? I mean, that kid's playing on fire.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that? What was that, Richie?
Well, Jack, you're right. He is, but the thing is that all the best teams that typically win, and go quite deep into the playoffs, they typically have 3 to 4 deep in their rotation. I mean, even the Chiefs, if you look at their current defensive line and whatnot, they have 3 or 4 solid pass rushers that are on that team. And depending on who you block, you free up somebody else to make a play. And so there's a reason why the Chiefs defense is still so sound, given who they have. Now, the question is, can they sustain that success? Because you're going to have to pay those guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different problem in and of itself. So they can kick that can down the road a little bit, but at the end of the day, there's a reason why the Chiefs have such a good defense right now, is that they're able to get pressure into the backfield and whatnot. Robert, my question for you is kind of teeing off of DZ's comment, and this kind of goes kind of for all of us in general, but obviously for you guys in particular, because, well, you have a reputation for this, which is, all right, you did really well in the first half and you sucked in the second half, right? Like relatively speaking. Okay, cool.
Right.
Well, that becomes much more difficult for you to do if you keep on getting guys injured, getting guys hurt.
Yeah.
Is building up that initial lead, giving yourself the cushion, and then finishing off the other team, right? Like at some point, there's going to be enough, football effectively, because like, let's be honest, like football's a violent sport, so it is what it is, where you guys may not be able to build up enough of a lead to give yourself that cushion, and or you won't have enough talented guys left on the roster to flip the switch and elevate their play in order to overcome and get you guys back in and win those games. So, I mean, this really goes for all of us, like Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, etc. But at the end of the day, there's really 3 of our teams that are certainly in the playoff picture right now, or playoff hunt, that are soundly locked in. Obviously, Alex's team is, on track right now to likely be the first seed if they continue this pace. But the question for you is, this is an MO. This is DZ's comment. How are you going to sustain that for the remainder of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely what contributed to also part of that second half collapse, and how Burrow was able to just get so hot in that second half was obviously, like Jack mentioned earlier, Cam Hart went out with a concussion in that second half, or before coming into that second half. So that was tough having to throw. I mean, we're spread super thin on the secondary as it is. I mean, the fact that we have both 5th-round rookies starting just showed you how spread thin we truly were. I mean, Asante Samuel was on the IL. Jasir Taylor was injured for a little bit. So I think just getting some of those guys back healthy will obviously help us in the long run. And ultimately, what nobody wants to hear, what no Charger fan wants to hear this year is there's no solution to it, but that's ultimately what it is. This is Ortiz's first year. This is Harbaugh's first year with the team. This was what we're doing right now is already exceeding any expectations anybody had for us coming into this season. We're firmly in a playoff spot. We're actually the 5 seed. And obviously, if we're not in a division with the Chiefs, who are 9-1 right now, I mean, we'd be a solid, probably top 4 seed if we're in any other division in the AFC, but minus the Bills. I mean, we're doing pretty well. So I think it's, just a little bit of patience with this team. I know it's exciting. We're finally, seeing what this team can do with the proper coaching and the proper management in place. But I truly do think after this year, whether we are one and done in the playoffs or we do manage to win, yeah, definitely exceeding Rank's predictions. We already matched what he had us for our total season wins at 7. So he's a clown, but whatever. So I do think after this draft, like you mentioned, Rich, this is going to be the draft where Ortiz truly, completely fills out this roster with his guys. Same thing with Harbaugh. I think the sad thing is we're not going to have Jesse Minter probably around to coach that defense when the time comes, because, I mean, he is probably going to be up for a head coaching job. He'll be a one and done with us, and truly, rightfully deserves it, because he is this defense is exceeding any expectations I had for them. I was saying we needed to be, middle of the pack. Like can we just be not bottom 3? And we end up being number 1 in points per game allowed so far, and still number 1 10 weeks into the season. So I think it was it's been a great season so far. I expect that to continue, but we're not there yet in terms of competing at that highest level. I expect us to be there next season, though.
Alex, quickly over to you, and then we'll start jumping into looking ahead at next week's games after Jack kind of gives us his 2 cents.
Yeah, you
go first.
The Chiefs game?
Yeah, you go first. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm sure, as everyone's aware, Chiefs are no longer undefeated.
Woo!
Thanks to the refs just handing a touchdown to the Bills on an offensive PI that wasn't called. No, I'm not being serious, but now you guys all know what you sound like every week. That did happen, though. You can go ahead and check my sources on that one. But yeah, I mean, the game went. I kind of as I
Are you seriously
expected.
Complaining about a penalty not going your way?
No, I'm not. And if the irony of my comment went past you, you can go back and listen to what I said after.
It's too cold up here right now.
Yeah. Anyways, though, yeah, I mean, the game went, about as expected. Like I knew it was going to be a close, tough game. Bills have had their number the past three years in the regular season. It was in Buffalo, and I said last week they were going to have to play a damn near perfect game to win, and that is not what we got. I mean, it was like they were still productive enough on offense. Put up points, scored. Mahomes manufactured a touchdown when he needed to make it a game. And, what they kind of the formula for how they've been winning up to this point was, score and force the defense to make a stop. And, they got them close to that moment. I think it was 4th and 3, and Buffalo kind of opposite of how they would have probably played it. Well, maybe in the playoffs, would play it safe and punt the ball and then give Mahomes time and he'd do Mahomes things. Elected not to do that and went for it. And, Josh Allen was able to scramble not only for the first down, but for the touchdown to put him up 9 points and pretty much put the game out of reach. So, there's been 3-4 games that have kind of been very close to ending that way. And it was only a matter of time before one of them finally fell, to the other side of the table. And I mean, like, Bills are elite team. Would have liked to see the Chiefs be able to run the ball a little bit better, and not abandon it. Like, they seem to kind of abandon some things that were working in the first half. But big thing was, obviously the third down conversions kind of on both ends. Chiefs were getting absolutely roasted by the Bills on third down and, pivotal fourth down, offensively. And then they weren't terrible on third down, offense wise. I mean, they were 50%, but just, when they needed to get conversions to kind of change the flow of the game in moments where we've traditionally seen them do that, it didn't happen.
That's abnormal for you guys.
Yeah, so
that's abnormal.
And again, to further flesh out the Chiefs get all the calls narrative, they had 6 penalties to the Buffalo Bills' 3. So, like to just point that out as well. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Mahomes said at the end of the game, hats off to the Bills. Like, they are an excellent team, but I think it's kind of good to get the monkey off the back, so to speak, of is this going to be the next 72 Dolphins to go all the way and three-peat and go undefeated? Like he said, now we can focus on the games that, like, what matters. And I think that's, this kind of what the team needed to, retool,
reset.
maybe reset, come out. At least they got a hell of a bounce back opponent to play. But
you can't lose this one.
Right?
Yeah, it is what it is. But you did see some positive things, obviously, like Xavier Worthy, 60 yards and a touchdown. The speed was on display in the first half, and then it's just like they like to do this thing where they use him for one half and then just act like he's not on the team. So that was a little disheartening, but you got to chalk it up to some of it is, I think, Andy Reid's kind of hesitant to overly involve rookies. And, everyone's always said how hard it is for rookies to get involved in Andy Reid's offense in year one. And they were forced to kind of do that. And I think they try not to put too much on his plate. But, he was the leading receiver, which should kind of tell you enough of how the game went for him offensively when he's your leading guy with 4 catches and 61 yards. D-Hop was pretty non-irrelevant. Travis Kelce went back down to a little irrelevancy, as I'm sure Jack loves, so he can talk about Bowers, since we're looking at it in a vacuum. Who's the GOAT, I guess. But yeah, and then the other thing was just on the defensive side of the ball, they really weren't able to get any pressure on Allen. They didn't have any sacks, not really any turnover-worthy plays. So we just kind of saw, a little bit. The defense didn't look as elite as they have, and I think once you couple that with just how this offense has looked leading up to this point, is kind of the culminating moment for something bad to happen, or just a loss, if you will.
I think this was easily. Like you said, I think this was definitely the toughest game on your guys' schedule this year. I fully agree that this is a better loss than win, kind of like weird situation. But to get that monkey off your back about being undefeated and to now just solely like focus and hone in on getting to the postseason, getting this number 1 seed locked up. Because if you did win this game, realistically, you guys have the 1 seed essentially locked up. Mm-hmm. Because it would have been, you have the tiebreaker over the Bills, you have the tiebreaker over Baltimore. You're so many games ahead of Houston and obviously the Chargers in your division and the other teams in the AFC that it would have been it would have been so bad for you guys basically having to finish out the season those last 7 weeks and none of those games mattering at all to you, essentially. So I as sad as it sounds, this was the one week I didn't want the Chiefs to lose, but it is what it is. So I truly do think you guys are just gonna, Andy Reid's gonna, like you said, rally the troops, get their heads right, get that undefeated monkey off your back, and now you guys are. Now is when we're probably going to see the best of the Chiefs moving forward for the rest of the season.
Well, that's what they did, Christmas Day last year. It changed the mindset. But Robert, I have a question. Why is it the one game that you wanted Kansas City to win against probably one of the best AF teams that's out there? Where again, if they lose one more game, and let's say Buffalo continues to win on, and if they had the same record, then Buffalo is going to get the nod for the home field advantage.
Yeah, I mean that part is true, but I think that it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. Yes, Buffalo's now within a game of overtaking that 1 seed because they do, like you said, possess a tiebreaker over KC, but on the flip side of that, until what I was saying, KC is now on edge about, we're only a game in the 1 seed now, and that team that's only 1 game behind us has the tiebreaker over us.
What he's saying is, if they won this one, when we play the Chargers next, they would have been sitting people, so they could have won and helped their chances.
I'm not saying anything, Alex.
That's the unspoken thing that's being shoved in front of our faces here.
Basically, what I'm saying is that the Chiefs are going to be playing on their A game now following this loss.
Now we play week 14. They wouldn't be doing that anyways.
No, but no. If you would have beat the Bills this week, realistically, obviously you're not going to be resting guys for 3 straight weeks. But it would have been like,
rest of the season.
If at halftime, we're down by 10, 13, we'll cash it in. We don't need the game. We have the division locked up. We have the 1 seed locked up. So. I mean, why risk it at that point? Give the guys reps, obviously, to keep them
just to knock out other AFC West teams.
Yeah,
I guess you had to play spoiler. You're going to be up by 10-13 over the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm saying in that situation where the Chiefs are already.
Where you live.
Hey, we were up 10 against the Chiefs earlier this year when we had neither tackle playing. So I mean, it's not completely out of the question. But I mean,
I just don't think the way the Chiefs are playing right now, they're going to ever be down by 13 points against a division rival.
No, and they are getting Pacheco back, so
they're getting healthier.
Positivity, to it as well. Reinforcements are coming, but I mean, ultimately, like I said, it boils down to they needed to play across the board a perfect game, and they did not do that. And even not doing that, I mean, they controlled their fate at the end, and that if they could have just gotten a 4th down stop, I mean, you put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands with 2 minutes left,
he wins that game.
He's pretty well established. More likely than not, he gets something done. So, that's I guess the glass half full of it. You got everything out of the Bills, and you were a banged up offense and a banged up defense, and it was still within 1 score and down to the wire. The other negative though is they were very clearly targeting Nazeeh Johnson, who was kind of the cornerback that rose to the top once Jalen Watson got hurt and they needed a replacement. Whether it was just directly targeting him or definitely trying to put him in confusing situations to leave someone open. They very quickly realized that was the weakness of the our defense and certainly exploited that. And them not being able to sustain any sort of continuous pass rush, plays into that too. So, Amenahu's coming back as well. Him and Pacheco are both. I think they're still limited.
Yeah,
they're still limited participants today. But like I said, reinforcements are on the way.
So you're playing Carolina next week.
Yeah, like I said, perfect bounce back opponent.
Right.
I'm looking at this. I'm like,
everything.
You're gonna win by like 40 points.
Maybe.
Sorry, my Alex, my playoff picture board that I have in front of me doesn't go that low. Oh, never mind. I found them.
I mean, I know we'll talk about it later, but yeah, like I said, perfect. They have the perfect bounce back opponent this week. So
I was listening to you. I was listening to you speak there. I was like, who do the Chiefs play next week? I was like, I almost
Panthers.
I had to visibly like look away from the screen slightly because I was trying not to laugh as I read it because it's just like, how does that ever happen?
Yeah, no, it's the final NFC South game, man. We're rounding it out with the Panthers. They definitely, I think, whoever does that, they looked at this and they're like, well, let's give the Chiefs a break after playing Buffalo.
Yeah, a little mini bye.
The Panthers, go kitty cats.
So DZ, my prediction is in this game we may see another owner beer throw, but we'll see. I mean, like, there's a special kind of embarrassment that happens for an owner that has that big of an ego when a team just obliterates you, who is a league favorite, right? Like that game, just because it's the Chiefs, will get more eyeballs than normal, and of course that owner knows it. He didn't make his billions just by not knowing these things. And I could totally see him he may not even show up to the game. He might just like sit at home and be like, if I'm going to destroy something, I'm doing it in my basement.
Is it in Carolina or are you in KC?
Yeah, it's in Carolina.
It's in Carolina. Oh God, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what though? He's happy because he can actually upcharge those tickets for this game. The only game he'll be able to do it for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is their money maker.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a road game, that's like the best road game to have.
Yeah, those top. Yeah, them or the Ravens.
So obviously, Jack, last week was your bye.
Yep.
Right. So, thanks for the recap. That's wonderful. I appreciate that.
Hey, I'm glad to be of service.
Yep. I
told you they were going to get blown out. I did predict a blowout here. Maybe not as bad as I said, but I mean, come on. I'm sorry.
It really wasn't a blowout, Robert. I mean, wasn't
it 34-19?
Yeah, but all that came. The Raiders were in the game up until the last 5 minutes. So let's just start. The Dolphins have been playing extremely well. Even the losses they had against the Cardinals without Tua, they lost by 1 point. They lost to Buffalo by 3 points. They won their last game. So the game was actually an interesting game. The offense finally came forward. It was crazy. The drives from both teams in the first half, minus 40 seconds, there's 4 possessions. 4. 2 each quarter from each team. Each team had sustained drives, but it was finally the perfect setting for, to have our offense do something under a new OC in the way of Scott Turner. Dad's helping him out too. But
ass heavy.
But we've never seen anything. Well, and I'll get to that too. But I mean, for the Raiders, we have not seen this. We're just so used to running on first, running on second, go for a pass, don't get it, punt. This time we've had sustained drives, and we can see if you can get someone who can actually confidently, call some plays, you got an opportunity. And another reason why it was going pass heavy, both our running backs got hurt.
Yeah.
So if you look at the total yards, our best running back was a wide receiver. So when you can't sustain that, when you can't run the ball, and then they get hurt. So Amadullah, is now the starter because neither running back in the way of Madison or Zamir White practiced today. So who knows if they're going to be there. It might be turning into the lobby show, on third downs and Amadullah on first and second. So if you need to pick up a free agent running back, for your fantasy league, he'll be a starter if these guys don't show up. But that kind of led us in the first quarter. So you're already kind of down. The defense, again, has been the strength of the Raiders, and they let up those sustained drives. And again, injuries played a huge part in that game. So you're already down Malcolm Kuntz. You're down Christian Wilkerson. Then Nate Hobbs did not play, who's your starting slot corner. And in the first corner, Bennett, who's probably been our best cornerback, got hurt. And then our other starting corner and Jack Jones got hurt. So you're out your entire backfield. So they had to Corian Richardson, which I said, hey, I want to see the young guys go. So he started off in the slot. But once Bennett got hurt, they moved him to the outside and they put in a guy I didn't even know was on the team, Darnay Holmes. And that was kind of a game changer for Miami, having that. They played the cover 2. I mean, when you got that type of speed with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, they were doing cover 2 the whole game, and they had to stick with it. They really couldn't get out of it because you got 2 young guys, or actually 3 young guys that are in there that don't know it. And Miami does a lot of motion, so there's a lot to learn and not having that experience. So they were pretty much playing the cover 2 the whole game. So in the way they started going short, and Jonah had like an unbelievable, I think it's the best game he's had over the whole year. It's like 6 catches for 101 yards, 2 touchdowns, 16 point, per catch. Just unbelievable. He outperformed Tyreek Hill. Tyreek 7 catches, 61 for 1 touchdown. So it was they had to actually change their game plan, and they started going short, and that's why you had these long sustained drives. And they played competitive football up until the very end with 5 minutes left to go. And again, Minshew does what Minshew does. It's probably one of his best games of the year. He threw a pick there was really no one there, just right to the other guy. And that's when they just kind of came back. And then
just to let you know, I'm still Gardner.
You're still Gardner.
I'm still Minshew.
Yeah, we'll see. He's gonna be like Gonsby. He's gonna be Gone Gardner next year, probably.
Gardner.
Yeah, I think O'Connell might win the backup role.
Well, whenever O'Connell comes back, he may take over. Who knows? But the Raiders are going for something different. You guys are all going for the playoffs. We're going for a pick at this stage.
We're going for Cam Ward.
I know.
I'll talk about that in a second with Ward and Sidor. But I do have to say, the one bright spot on the team, again, Brock Bowers sets another record again. I don't know how many times I said this. I think I said this every single week.
He's crazy, man.
He 13 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. He broke Mark Bavaro from the New York Giants, where he had 12 receptions, which was an all-time rookie. And then he's 371 receiving yards to be all-time for tight ends that pass up Mike Ditka.
Oh, he's gonna pass that.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
He's gonna crush that record.
They're in week 12.
Dude, he had 10 more targets than the next closest guy on your team, and that was Jacoby Myers, who had 6. Bowers had 16 targets.
16, and they did try to double him and so forth. But Bowers is just he's unbelievable. I mean, he's just simply unbelievable in what he does. And it's like there's only 2 tight ends in the league who've ever caught more than 10 catches in a game, twice in the season. It's him and Jeremy Shockey. So, and what's even crazier, one of the stats that I saw was, I think he's 9th in the NFL in receiving, but he's got 70 receptions. And Jamar Chase, just look at what he just did. He's had 1 less game, and Chase has only got 3 more receptions.
Wow.
So,
that's crazy.
I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. And I can't wait to see what he does, in year 2. And just imagine if he actually had a quarterback, what those numbers could actually really look like.
I'm not sure he would actually be doing that much better if he had a different quarterback. I think what the problem is that you have right now is your quarterbacks don't have a ton of time to throw. And
they don't.
They need to throw. They need to throw to the tall, fast guy that can catch quickly. And so they're dumping to him because he's a sure thing. Clearly. I mean, the dude is killing it, right? And so I think that's
DZ, man.
Yep.
I was just reading it and then got to the end and it was like, I gotta highlight that.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Funny.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
But
I
actually, Jack, my prediction actually isn't so much that this is an indictment on Bowers, because that's not what I mean by this at all. I think that in this offseason with the Raiders cap space in the draft, you're going to upgrade your offensive line, which is then going to enable your quarterback to properly distribute the football to other members of your offense. And I think that's actually like, again, I just want to make sure that that was kind of understood by all the Raiders fans and everyone here, including yourself. That is not an indictment on Bowers. That is what I believe.
It's an indictment on the quarterbacks, not being able to do it, and having to go because he really doesn't throw. Minshew doesn't really throw deep. And, I was expecting a lot more from Tucker in the way of him, using him as a weapon going downfield. But I do agree the offensive line has issues, but I will say this is one of the better games they played. And I finally feel like they got it right in the way of having the guys out there who need to play. So I think this is their best front they've had for the whole season. No more white hair, no Andres Pete. They finally put in Meredith, after Parham got hurt, and Meredith showed, hey, I can play, and they moved him over to left guard. And so this is probably the most stable offensive line they've had all season. They gave up 3 sacks this game, and the pressures weren't as bad as other games he's had. That's, again, an indictment for, again, you look at the first half, Raiders did the same thing as Miami. They controlled the ball. And yes, they did have to throw the ball a ton because you don't have any running backs. When both your starting running backs are wiped out.
16 rushes for 60 yards. Yeah, you guys weren't. And 20 of those came on the one carry by Jacoby Myers. So really, it was 15 rushes for 40 yards. You're not doing anything with that.
I say, though, that's probably a testament, though, to our affirmation that you should have got rid of Gonsby because I don't know that he could put forth a competent offense without a running game, so at least that your team was essentially hogtied with one hand behind your back, the defense knowing you're going to pass and you were still effective with Minshew. So,
or run the ball when it makes no sense to run the ball, 2 times in a row.
Yeah, hey, let's not ignore that Brock Bowers also had -3 rushing yards, so he's not perfect.
He did. He actually had an attempt, and I think that was his first attempt this year.
For -3.
For -3.
Probably never going to do that.
But I'll take that. For to get the rest of it, I will take. I'll take that.
Okay, we saw what it looks like. Get him out.
And and another tight end actually, which Raider Nation definitely has been praying for this kid and Michael Mayers. We don't know what's going on, in his personal life, and that's not going to be shared. But it was great to see him back on the field. He only had 1 reception, excuse me, for 5 yards, but he looked like he was blocking pretty good. And I'm sure being away from the game that long, you got to work yourself back in. He said he ran and stuff like that, but there's running shape and lifting versus being in pads.
Has he been out this whole year?
The last 6 weeks.
Damn.
On personal reasons.
Yeah, he's upset that they replaced him.
Maybe. But he says that he's just loved the support that he's gotten from the organization and the fans. And he said he's happy to be back. So, again, I don't know what the real reason is, but it's something that in his past, I guess he's gone through before. So I'm not sure what it is, but I'm just happy to have that kid back because I thought about buying a second jersey. I've only owned 1. And that is, double up. But I'm happy to see him back.
The one thing your coach has a bit of a history of is legitimate second chances for guys that are trying to kind of get themselves straight. And if he has addiction issues or anything like that, I could actually see if he has done certain things to try to make sure that he keeps himself kind of, down the right path. I could see your owner actually. He's got a bit of a storied history of helping guys out and doing the right thing and that sort of thing. I could actually see your owner kind of being that guy. He just had as much as all the AFC West fans may want to, slam the Raiders. The Davis family, generally speaking, has kind of done right by some of their players that have intentionally tried to do the right thing to improve themselves. And so I could see your owner kind of maybe being one of those guys with Meyer. If he's kind of struggled with that kind of stuff, I don't know. I'm just, simply speculating.
Yeah, nobody knows.
But again, I could see something like that. I could see also maybe a medical diagnosis that he's been trying to sort through and work out. I could see something like that where, the Davis family would certainly be supportive in that regard. The Kraft family would be another one that has done certain things like that for their players in the past as well. But I could see something like that. Glad to see him out there. It's always good to see a team coming back out with all of their players, even if they're, not necessarily in contention, but certainly, coming back out with all of their players, because you want to see where your team truly stacks up rather than some shell of some other team that you go against. Otherwise, you really don't know where your team's at either.
I can't argue with that. And again, I've seen the progression, at least for one short week, having the bye week to get ready and everything else, but changing your whole offensive system. It was great to see it. And I'm glad that they're doing it. And that's what I want, is something competitive. So again, since the Raiders are going for a different type of, outcome at this point, I don't know if we're going to call it, sink for Sanders or whip for Ward, but I think that's kind of the way it's going to go. We're not going to do a tank for Tua, so no tanking. So either it's going to be a stink,
collapse for Cam.
Collapse for Cam.
Collapse for Cam. There you go.
That's good.
And so right now, I think the Raiders they keep changing it up. Every time I go and look at it, they keep changing it up. Right now, they got based on right now, I think the 5th pick. And then you got the New York Giants, and you got Cleveland and Tennessee all ahead of them.
New York's trying to lose every game from here on out.
Well, they just benched their quarterback. Danny Dimes has gotten benched.
Cutlets.
I was just about to say, those teams ahead of you, you got to look out for the ones that are going to draft a quarterback, but all those teams you mentioned are going to draft a quarterback.
Well, not Jack. I don't see Jacksonville right now. They got the 4th pick. I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback.
That one is I actually
extended Lawrence.
Yeah, I know they just extended Lawrence, but that's something interesting, because if the Jags somehow end up, and it's a very real possibility, because I don't even think Lawrence is playing the rest of this season. If the Jags end up with the number 1 pick, what do? Do you trade Lawrence and reset completely and just fire Peterson? I agree with Rich. I say yes.
I say fire Peterson for sure.
Yeah, well, you definitely fire Peterson's gone at the end of the season. I think that's a foregone conclusion. But I personally, in these years we've seen Trevor play, his signature moment is in the playoffs, obviously, coming back from that huge deficit and beating us. But I think even that, we look back on it more as an indictment on Staley and the trash coaching and just overall managerial kind of focus of that team was just garbage. So if that's your biggest, that's your credible win, your iconic win.
Does Justin Herbert have a playoff win?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. But also Herbert has. I mean, I'm not seeing Herbert play that bad as to what the Jags were playing this year.
So let me throw this at you, Robert. If you looked at before this season, Trevor Lawrence, as he gets this big contract, Minshew actually had better looking stats.
Oh yeah.
So who's going to want to trade for Trevor Lawrence and have to pay all that money and then give up a pick to get him?
Yeah, I mean that's the hole that they're kind of in. It's kind of like the same situation with the Cowboys right now. The Cowboys just re-signed Dak to that huge extension before this season, and now they're looking at he might just go.
He's going to go wherever quarterback.
Whoever has the number, whoever has the number. I mean, whoever has the number 1 overall pick is going to have a strong pull on Ben Johnson come free coaching free agency. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation for them, because I'm with Rich on this one. I don't think Lawrence has it, and I think we've seen that pretty consistently from these last couple of years. And I mean, he has a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson. He had success with Peterson already. And so now to see the kind of he's never lived up to being the number 1 overall pick. That much is certain. Like, regardless of how you view Lawrence, he has not lived up to being the #1 overall pick, and he did not deserve that contract. They gave him that contract simply because he was going to be a free agent, and you don't want to live with that. Well, what if he signs with somebody else and he ends up being the greatest thing ever? And I mean, I get it. He had playoff appearances, but I think when you saw, I mean, I agree with Big E. I think Trevor is a huge upgrade for whatever the Raiders have right now, but they're not going to be in contention for him. They're looking to draft a guy. But besides the point, I think Trevor Lawrence, just when you saw that collapse of, what were they, like 8-3 that one year, and they finished the season 8-9, they go like on a 6-game losing streak to close out the year, missed the playoffs, they had the division lead in hand. I mean, what have you seen that you believe, okay, we can hit the reset button with this QB on this giant contract, and we're going to get a new head coach that wants him? Because you bring in a new head coach, he's going to want his guys. I mean,
so are you saying they cut him? They draft a quarterback and they cut him, and they just kind of did what the Broncos did?
Yeah, and you just hit the huge reset button, because you're not. Who are you competing with in that division? The Titans are going to get a quarterback this draft. The Texans are already firmly the best team in that division. Oh God, who else is in that division?
Colts,
thank you. The Colts are, I mean, they're kind of iffy. They just drafted their QB, so they're kind of like on the
bench.
Yeah, who they mentioned
too. No, they brought him back. So
they did bench him.
And I mean, he looked. I can't lie. He looked good when in the game he came back in. Like that was the best he's looked all season. So for whatever you want to, talk ish on the Colts for, at least so far, and I know it's only a week sample size, it's worked out. So now we're obviously going to see what happens. They have probably the toughest game this week against the Lions. So I don't think anybody's expecting them to come away with a dub there. But I mean, they're a team that's, fighting for a playoff spot right now. So realistically, what are you doing if you're the Jags? Because I personally don't believe you can win with Lawrence. I don't think he's shown to be that caliber of QB. So if you think that, I mean, if you think he is, and you want to stick and wait around some more, hey, more power to you. You can trade that first overall pick and get a boatload of picks. And if you think he's your guy, you can reset your team that way. But personally, for me, you already have a couple weapons there. Tank Bigsby looks to be like a really solid starting option. You can cut ETN. Like, they need to do a hard reset on that franchise, because they tried to go all in with T-Law, and it's just blowing up in their face.
We could say the same thing with Cleveland. Cleveland is the one team that
they should definitely blow it up too.
I mean, you look at that's the one team. The Raiders actually beat them. So again, they got any tiebreaker, but Cleveland, I don't think they're going to win another game. They play the Steelers, the Broncos, the Steelers again, Kansas City, the Bengals, the Finns, and the Ravens. I don't see a single win coming out for Cleveland.
Yeah, they're going to drop those two to Pittsburgh. Yeah, those are all either top teams in the AFC or teams that are scrapping and fighting for a playoff spot that are going to be desperate for a win come when they face them. So, I mean, but that's another one.
I actually think this is the only, this is it. I actually think this is the one team
he can work with.
Yeah, because Lawrence, I think I agree with you. I agree partially with Jack, and I agree partially with Alex. But I agree mostly with Big E, but I'm not sure if we agree for the same reasons, because he hasn't expanded upon his comments here in the chat. So, in my opinion, I think Trevor Lawrence is not a guy that can actually put a team on his back and do what, say, Patrick Mahomes does, for example.
Right.
I don't believe that he can be that guy yet, because I don't think he's built up the confidence yet at the NFL level, because his franchise is not at that caliber in terms of ownership, etc.
I think it's coaching.
Well, I think it's both, actually, to be quite honest. But
also, I think it's the general manager for not drafting.
Right. Yeah. So I'm looking at kind of what we've seen there, and simply saying, I think if you go to a head coach that's very good at the outside zone run, that's very good with running the ball, and that kind of builds like a gritty style team, I believe Trevor Lawrence can do very well, where he is more of a chess master that doesn't need to then kind of play the role of backyard quarterback. if that kind of makes sense, right? Like
right.
if he can play the role of, we've got a game plan here and I can execute the heck out of this thing, I think that that's kind of where Trevor Lawrence can actually excel and kind of do well in. I think that he's almost in some regards almost the opposite of, say, a Patrick Mahomes.
He's Jared Goff.
He is.
That's what his like, you're seeing what Jared Goff is doing right now with the Lions. That is the ceiling of Trevor Lawrence.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And like I said, I think when you look at Mahomes can be a guy that can throw a team on his back and say, let's go. And I think Lawrence is a guy that's kind of more akin to the, I can be a system guy and kill it. And I think he can. I think he could if he was in the right system. I think the 49ers are probably it for him, and it'll be interesting to see because they're not doing as well as they should be doing this year. And so that could actually be a little bit of a savant style comment perhaps there if the Jags opt to go in that direction, Robert, because if they outright cut him and pull what I'll now refer to as a Bronco move and eat a boatload of dead cap to say, we just got to do the thing and do the thing, and eat that massive dead cap in year one to say, oh no, we suck again, and kind of, and then eat, and then eat that initial cap hit in the first year to then come back with a much stronger second year, kind of like what my Denver Broncos are doing this season. Although, we're doing halfway decent for basically eating a boatload of dead cap. Like, we have $85 million in just Russell Wilson dead cap money this year, and we're seventh in the playoff picture. So that's a good crap year. You know what I mean? Like that's a good year where you're not doing well. In fairness.
But it is going to be interesting though too with the just looking at the Raiders lost after the game was over. Sador posted, thank you, God.
Yes.
And I did see an interview with Dion, and he was talking about, I'm going to make sure my son goes to the right situation, that it's done right. He says, if I have to talk to, won't do it in public, but I'll talk to certain teams behind the scenes. So, it doesn't say like who he's talking about, but it is kind of interesting if you look at the top teams and kind of how they've done things. It might be all of them. I mean, the only ones I can honestly see, again, after Sador posting online, Twitter, I can see the Raiders and I can see the Cowboys. Cowboys are like number 7 pick.
Yeah, those are the only two, in my opinion. The Cowboys would have to trade up, and that's I feel like it's a situation where, kind of like I said, somewhat jokingly, but also kind of seriously, I truly do believe like Dion is looking to, if he does want to coach in the NFL, he is looking to coach whatever team his son gets drafted to. And the Raiders and the Cowboys are the two prime targets for that, because they're both going to most likely fire their head coaches at the end of this season. They're both in need of a starting quarterback. I know Cowboys have one in Dak, but do you really have one? I don't think so. And I think they're looking to hard reset as well. Just because,
also,
sorry, go Jack.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I can see that maybe for Dallas. I think, just because of, for AP, Sanders also said that he loves AP and he admires AP. And so he likes what AP's done, maybe just because he's a former player. I'm not sure. Yeah. But also, too, it's in a way of a link with Sador and Tom Brady. They're same, whatever Tom Brady company is, Sador's a part of that. Sador met, Mark Davis at an Aces game. So I can see Dion playing behind the scenes. I don't see Dion, though, as probably being a coach for the Raiders. But I think he's
going to move. I think he's going to move to the NFL. That's just my
opinion. Might, and then maybe he'll be a DB coach or something, because I don't think he's definitely not going to take over defensive coordinator and with Patrick Graham. I mean, he's the light of the coaches that are on that staff.
But I think you also have to look at when your head coach does get fired, usually the coordinators and kind of everybody underneath him follows suit. So I know you may not want to fire Patrick Graham, and I mean it does happen. There are times when a new head coach comes in and does keep old coordinators from the old regime, but usually you bring in a new head coach, he's going to bring in all his guys. Right. So I mean, it's tough. Like you might end up losing out on a DC Patrick Graham, but you get a good head coach. I mean,
well, the only guy right now I can see a connection as head coach would be Vrabel, just because just because his connection with Tom Brady.
And he's someone you could sign long term, and he would be like, okay, draft the quarterback. Like this is where we're gonna go with this team. Like you would have a vision at that point if you signed.
I'd also argue a guy like Flores would be in a similar position to that as well, because
I think he's blackballed from being a head coach, though.
Well, look, I mean, like putting all puns and stuff aside in terms of commentary and whatnot, I actually think that when you're looking at true success, and if the NFL were to finally revert back to a pure meritocracy, which I would hope that they can get back to, that dude had that team playing a certain kind of way, certainly on the defensive side of the ball, which was undeniably great. And they remained competitive because of a certain fire that you could see them coming out and playing with on any given Sunday. And Vrabel was another guy that I believe is exactly as DZ said. He's a cultural builder. I think that you have Flores and Vrabel, which are very culture kind of driven guys, which are really indicative of legit head coach. Like that's what you want for your head coach. You want your head coach to come in and gut the crap and put in and instill a culture that allows you guys to win. Moving on, because we got Alex is going to have to leave very soon. Alex, I'm going to throw over to you to briefly talk about your Carolina game, which should be a very brief discussion. I will throw over to you with a last moment commentary. You're going to kill him.
You're right.
Take it away.
It could be a huge trap game, you know. I remember that 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago with Matt Ryan led Colts. Chiefs lost to them when I thought they were just going to blow them out. But, with that being said, like I said earlier in the show, perfect bounce back opponent for KC to have this week, playing the Panthers, who are coming off a bye in Carolina. I think they are 11-point favorites.
Should be more.
So pretty large spread. They historically aren't very good at covering large spreads like that. With that being said, I truly believe that
have them covering.
Well, that. But no, I truly believe that the loss to Buffalo would kind of reset things and wake them up a little bit. And we finally kind of see all of the offensive pieces click together. I think it's still to be determined if Pacheco comes back. They're targeting for him to play. I don't know the extent of what, but I think would be a nice breath of fresh air to bring that explosiveness back to the offense, because Kareem Hunt is, he's lacked in that department outside of being just able to come off the street and keep him with a viable running game. But yeah, I think this is one that we see an offensive resurgence, and I mean, they're clearly the more talented team, so they should win pretty easily. And I would predict, maybe out of my own hope of just seeing them pour a little more into the scoreboard, I'm going to predict 35-10 Kansas City.
All right, I'll give my quick just score prediction here. Same thing. This is going to be a blowout. I mean, Chiefs should have this in the bag. If you're a betting person,
I'm just blowing this up for purposes of documentation.
Oh shit, TZ. Oh man, yeah, it's this. I'm with Alex on this one. That one caught me so off guard. I'm with Alex on this one. This is gonna be a straight blowout. This is gonna be. I'll just throw out I'll say 37-14. I'll give the Panthers a garbage touchdown. Yeah. They'll get one early on, and it'll be like, oh, look, Panthers have the lead, and then it'll just all go to shit super quick, and then they'll get one, 2 minutes up to go in the fourth quarter. They're pretty good at getting garbage time touchdowns.
That's true.
So yeah, that's what I see. Come on, there's nothing really to talk about here. This is gonna be a stomping.
I can't argue with what you guys are talking about. I mean, it's like after the first quarter, you can probably just turn the game off and say it's done. I see it as a blowout too. I'm going to give the Panthers a little bit more. I'm going to give KC a little bit more. I got KC going 42. I got the Panthers not scoring a touchdown, getting 4 field goals. So 12.
Damn. Hey, they do have the all-time most accurate kicker in NFL history. So
they're going to be using them a lot.
Thanks to Justin Tucker missing 3 or 2 the other day, but
dude, what happened with kickers that past week? By the way, just a little side note, they were awful all across the league.
I don't know. I saw a big breakdown on the reason that Justin Tucker's missing his kicks is because his holder sucks, and I'm pretty convinced that that's accurate. Because when you watch where his holder places the ball, it's like never anywhere near where his foot, like his hand marker is.
Oh God!
And so Justin Tucker, literally all of his misses are just to the left, where like if the kicker would have put the ball right where his hand was, it'd be perfect. So, and it's it was to whoever's
Alex,
credit it was like a 3-minute video. I'm like,
Alex, I believe the holder is in debt and has debt against those missed kicks.
Yeah, probably.
So he has since won his money back, and so we'll likely see Tucker start to kick properly again, because he obviously Tucker was favored to make all of those. Yeah. So the placeholder there has now made his money back. He's got himself out of the hole. That's fantastic. Of course, I have no idea. Of course, I have no idea. But obviously satire. But we'll wait and see what happens, because to your point, the dude's like automatic. Like, it's ridiculous. I have a pretty straightforward score here. I don't even need to go into it. I do believe that the Chiefs are going to start pulling players in the back end of this game, and I think that's going to allow Carolina to get a touchdown, not multiple, but a touchdown as a result of ones versus threes kind of stuff being in the game. And so I see this as a 41-10 game for KC. I do not see this as close. I see that touchdown coming into like the garbage time of garbage time. Like literally you're at 41-3, and the touchdown comes to like fourth quarter, 3 minutes left.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's
literally DZ. That's exactly it.
That's my mental. Yeah, exactly. That's my mental.
I would not be mad with that.
Yeah. So
do you have it on fantasy?
Yeah.
Nice. So, all right, Rich, you wanna go with your guys' up?
Yeah, I think we go division game next. I think that's important. So, Jack, how you doing?
I'm doing good, brother.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's going to be really interesting to play you guys. It's a 5.5 point spread, and yeah, you guys are just rocking and rolling. I mean, looking at what Bo is doing and how every week he's improving. I like what SMA is doing on your team. Your team is gelling. I mean, your defense is just unflipping believable. So the last time, I do want to ask you this. Last time you said, was it 5.5 sacks is what you had? So what do you got for sacks wise for this game?
I have this one being a little bit higher. I think we.
Oh no, you had 6 or 7 sacks last time.
Yeah, we did. I called 5 to 6, and we ended up with 7.
We only got 3.
We got 3?
Yeah.
I thought it was more than that. Anyways, I'm gonna have this one being between 5 and 6 sacks in this game. I think that your offensive line is a little bit worn out as the season gone on. I think that we have traded away an injured player to allow a rookie player who is starting to ascend a little bit in Ellis come in to start to play. Vance Joseph is also rushing guys from various positions on the defensive field now, which he was not doing in the earlier stage of the season as much. He is bringing guys like safety blitzes. He is bringing corner blitzes, and he's also just bringing guys that you don't expect to rush the passer, and they're getting home. So I have to give credit where credit's due to the guys on the defense, again, to say that they're kind of doing the thing and getting it right. So I see this being a 5 to 6 sack game. I think that your offensive line, as the year has gone on, is going to start getting worn out, and that's kind of my prediction there. Despite the fact that they're gelling a little bit better, I just think that they're they're outmatched. I just think that the defense is just better than they are used to going up against, and the main guy, just generally speaking, there's just too many people and too good of a defensive coordinator in Vince Joseph, where I think they're going to struggle. And Alex, you know full well, coach defense has had nothing but praise to heap on Vince Joseph for his defensive play calling, and I have to agree with coach there for sure. So,
I can't disagree with you. I mean,
I just think you're being outmatched. That's it. Like
I agree. Again, there's 2 starting running backs. Every single defensive back right now hasn't practiced. Probably won't play. They just don't have anything left. You know, it's like, again, based on what I've seen Bo do, the Raiders can't run the ball in the first place, and now you're going on your 4th and 3rd and 4th running backs. I do see the offensive line did play a lot better. They gave up 3 sacks to Miami, and Miami's got a pretty decent defense. Yes, yours is definitely better. So I can't see the Raiders keeping up this game at all. And I got the Raiders losing, and actually the spread, like I said, was like 5.5. I got it even greater than that. I got it as Raiders 16, Denver 28. That's what I got for this game.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. I have Denver winning this game. It's the Raiders' offense, man. If the Raiders could get anything consistent on offense, I'd feel a lot better picking them for a couple of these games. But it's just you just never it's basically Brock Bowers or bust, and I think Denver, especially with their elite defense, will do a good job of locking him up and forcing Minshew to go to his other options, forcing them to try to run the ball. It's going to be tough on them. I got Denver winning this one pretty handedly. I'm going to say it's going to be like 27-13.
Yeah, and I would kind of agree with all of you guys. I just think, and you guys are trying to collapse for Cam, so you really don't want to win this game.
Yep.
But no, I mean, I just think Denver's defense is too elite. Their offense has been pleasantly surprising the past couple weeks. Yeah, growing every week, but then I think taking even further steps these past couple games. I'm looking back at what was at week 5. It was 34-18, and even in that game, Bo Nix was 19 for 27, 206, and 2 touchdowns. So I think just with how banged up the Raiders are, with how good the Broncos defense is, that I don't see it being much of a game. You kind of go with you, Jack. It's probably more of a double what the spread is. But yeah, I'll give it I'll say 35-17, just to give you guys some points. How about that?
We'll take some points.
Points.
I actually have something similar, Alex. Just from my perspective, I'm in a similar position in terms of score. I think my biggest thing here is what Bo does with Max. I need to see Bo Nix adjust protections with Max Crosby being the guy, right? Like, this has been my issue with Bo Nix for most of the season. He goes against a team like the Falcons, or he goes against a team, who is perhaps lacking some defensive talent in terms of pass rush, and he's able to basically, mask protection issues and do well. What about a dude who's like top 3 in the league? Are you going to be able to adjust protections and spot, Graham delayed blitzes or overloading the right side like he missed in the last time he played, by the way? Like, this is why I'm pointing this out. Bo Nix missed a delayed linebacker blitz and got sacked pretty hardcore against the Raiders. And it really knocked us out of a pretty solid drive that we were in the middle of, simply because Bo Nix is learning. He's a rookie quarterback. I know these are all things that we should expect, but those guys, like the guy, they adjust and they don't make those mistakes a second time. And so I need to see that from Bo Nix this game. I need to see him read the field, recognize where those pressures are coming from, looking at the linebackers and corners and safeties to see if they're running blitzes and stuff like that from the backfield. That being said, I kind of see this as I actually had written down here 35-17, 35-20, something in that range there. However, I do think that score prediction can kind of get a little bit more out of hand if your offense turns the ball over for a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just turns the ball over in general.
I don't want to see another pick six. You guys already got one. One's enough.
No, but that's my point, though, is that you got Riley Moss, you have Patrick Surtain, and you got McMillian. You got these guys. Like, these guys are good. They're not just like, they are good. And you also got Jones. I think Jones is the safety there, who's playing pretty solid, lights out too. PJ Locke, who's playing solid, lights out too, in terms of, batting balls and picks and stuff as well. Like, the point is that you're in a position with the backfield that has the skilled defensive backs that are very opportunistic.
And I will say your DBs will get a pick, because I don't think Minshew's played a game where he hasn't thrown at least one pick.
Right. So the question is that are they then able to stop or prevent it going all the way back to the house? And if not, then you run into this real issue of morale, right? So if you've had the team score a touchdown on the drive before, and then you're trying to go down the field, and then your quarterback throws a pick six and it goes back, and now you're at a 14-point negative swing there, that kills morale on your team. Like, I don't care who you are,
sure.
Especially against a divisional opponent. And
especially when your morale's not as high when you know you're already eliminated from the playoffs.
Right. So that's my point, right? Is then what? And I think that's where a game can get really out of hand really quickly. And then you start questioning your head coach. You start questioning all sorts of things. So, I'm going to say 35-17, I think is kind of where I'm going. But I think it has every possibility, perhaps, if a pick six occurs, to even go higher than that if a pick six occurs, because that could be a 14-point swing, short succession. And especially if that happens early. If that happens early in the game, in like the first half.
A shrimp boat in Beloit, Mississippi.
Are you saying his name is Bubba?
He is Bubba.
Might as well be.
Bubba Gump. Yeah. I mean, he's got gene on gene, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's got what we call up in here in Canada the Newfie tuxedo. But anyways, I'm going to throw over to you, Robert, because I think we've all given our score. That closes out for the Vegas Broncos game, and there did seem to be a consensus there.
Yeah, we're all in agreement. Even Jeff, which is crazy.
I think we're all in agreement on both games so far. We're all clean sweep for the Chiefs and clean sweep for the Broncos. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a clean sweep for the Ravens on this one here too. I have us losing to the Ravens. This is going to be the ultimate test essentially for this defense. This is another desperate team coming off a loss to another AFC North team. So we get back-to-back AFC North opponents coming off heartbreaking last-second losses to AFC North division opponents. So this is just really beautiful for us. So we do got to say bye to Alex
fellas.
Here. Have a good one,
drop
sir.
My prediction for you, Rob.
Yes, sir. I'll read it off right now.
Make sure you share that.
Yeah, I will. Hey, don't end the stream again.
What? In stream? You got it. Leave studio or in stream? Ah! See you guys
later. So I have us losing this game. It's going to be a high-scoring one for sure. I think the defense is it's going to get tested again. I mean, this is the number one offense in the league. They're putting up 30 points a game. The number one in yards per game. The second rushing attack, third passing attack. I mean, we're going to have our hands full with this one. Definitely need to have everybody healthy for us to even have a chance. And I do believe we have a chance in this game. I just don't think we're quite there yet. Now, that being said, a win here, you really got to start looking at the Chargers as legitimate threats in the AFC. because that would be a 5-game winning streak, back-to-back opponents on the AFC North. That would mean 3-1 against that division. I had us going 1-3 in that division this year. So, I mean, this is last week's game was much more important. Getting to 7-3 versus 6-4 is just morally such a huge boost for the team. So even if we lose this game, being at 7-4, it's not going to be like unless we get just absolutely annihilated and we get blown out like 40, by like 30 points or whatever, which I don't see that happening. Not with this Harbaugh team, not with this defense. But I do see us losing a close game. I'm going to say it's going to be high scoring. I'm going to say it's going to be like 31-28. I think Justin Tucker gets some revenge this week, a little walk-off field goal action. I think we're going to be able to maintain for a little bit in this game, but I think at some point the Ravens are just going to go on a run, and we're going to see why Lamar is MVP. We're going to see why, this team is competing for one of the best in the AFC. I mean, it's going to be tough on us. This is back-to-back games. You're coming off an emotional win on a last-second, touchdown scored on the final drive. And yeah, like DZ mentioned, Minter's defense, the one thing we can say all year is he's struggled against mobile QBs. And we even saw Joe Burrow last week run for some first downs and for some big, chunk plays that you never really see him run. So that's what terrifies me this week. Is I'm not really worried so much about Derrick Henry as I am about Lamar Jackson and what he can do to our defense. But it really, I mean, ultimately, if we can get consistent offensive play on both halves, I love our chances, because that defense is faulty. That defense can be gotten. I mean, it is the worst pass defense in terms of yards in the league, and I still think they're bottom 3 in touchdown passes allowed. So if we have any chance of winning this game, it'll probably be in a shootout, or the defense just surprises everyone and shows us that we're one of the best teams in the AFC. But yeah, I have us unfortunately falling in this game 31-28.
So Robert, I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, who's at home? Number 2 is Khalil Mack coming back this week?
We're at home. I'm not sure about Khalil Mack. I haven't heard anything. It was kind of a surprise that he didn't play last week, because all signs, and when they even asked him, they were like, "Do you see yourself playing this week?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So it really must have been either the training staff just telling them like, "Hey, you could play, but don't bother risking it. We need you for this stretch after," or it could have been he tweaked something prior to the game, and that just made it even more so like, yeah, you're not playing. So we'll have to wait on that one to see, but we absolutely need him for this game. We need everybody to show up big time. So we're at home, to answer your first question, and I truly don't know about Mac. Hoping he does play, but we're I guess prepared to go without him.
Yeah, that makes a big difference if Mac plays or not, because he can definitely shut the edge down and contain. So,
just in the run game too, he's huge in the run game.
Oh, absolutely. Him and Max Crosby have a lot of similar traits from one another that I've seen them both play on the Raiders. I'm gonna think if he's that close for a big game like this, and knowing we'll also have to deal with the seeding, for the playoffs. I think, and Mac's not a guy that I see who will ever, try to sit out either. He will try to get in the game. So my mindset is that he's going to probably be there then. But I have your defense is just like all the other AFC West teams. Your defense is special. I mean, if the Ravens scoring the most points, your defense is giving up the least amount of points. So that's going to kind of offset each other. And I agree with you 100%. It's going to be about containment of Lamar. And again, Derrick Henry, I think, again, I love what Ford has done for your team. I mean, man, just getting that guy, he's your best defensive tackle I've seen in years.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I see this, and the way that your team's rolling, your quarterback's rolling. Yes, Lamar is playing MVP level. I just think with your defense, and I've seen the Ravens not show up to certain games this year, but I've not seen your team not show up. But the Ravens, that the Raiders beat them when early in the season when they were thinking they were good. And who did they beat? Was it Cleveland that beat them?
Yeah,
and
Cleveland got them.
Cleveland's was horrible.
And Pittsburgh just got them this past week.
Well, but Pittsburgh's good,
right?
But you look at it.
That's 2 division games. So like I know Cleveland's awful, but I mean division games. Anything can happen.
That's true. It is any given Sunday, but based on that alone, I actually have you guys in a squeaker.
Wow.
Pulling us out. I got you down. Again, they're going to give up more points. Their defense is not going to be, it's not going to be like what you're used to. I see it just like everybody else. It's a higher scoring game. I got the Chargers winning 27-24.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that, Jack. I did not see that one coming. I did want to quickly read off here Alex's prediction. He has the Ravens winning 28-27, so he has them really squeaking this one out, only a point. He says he hopes the Chargers win, but unfortunately he thinks Baltimore will bounce back after that tough loss to Pittsburgh. And, I agree with him. That's why I mentioned beforehand, it's playing a team that's coming off a divisional loss. And now they're going to be facing a team that's their essential wild card opponent in terms of which wild card seeding they're going to get. I think they're going to come out swinging. They're going to come out for a win. And obviously, both teams are going to be going the full mile and a half for their head coaches. So this is going to be a very physical game. I'm very excited to see this game. Just this is going to be like hard nosed. It's going to be high scoring, but just physical tackling. Just like it's going to be a brutal, like I said, bloodfest in this game.
This game had me torn. Like torn. No offense, both results were you losing.
That's fair.
Okay, but I have this like A versus B scenario. So I'll go A and I'll go B and I'll tell you which one I ended up landing on. So A was that this is going to be a bit of a battle of the defenses because I believe your defenses are both very good. I think that Baltimore is a better defense than their record shows because they're able to keep themselves in games, whether or not we like to admit it or not.
Right.
Their offense obviously sustains drives, which kind of weakens their opponent's defense.
Right.
Clearly. But ultimately, I think their defense is just a little bit better than we're giving them credit for. So what I'm looking at on that front is that unless the Chargers get up to some obscene lead and your defense able to lock them down, which I don't see. I don't see that happening.
Even if we get into a lead,
you're probably likely to give up. You're probably likely to give it back, right? So.
Yep.
So my thought process is that my initial gut reaction of thinking that this was going to be a super duper low scoring game and kind of like a slugfest of defenses, I didn't believe was a realistic or viable option given the overall health of both teams and when you're meeting each other in the season. So that was kind of mental math A, which I think had some validity to it, but I just think you met too late in the season, so therefore I don't think that's reasonable to be the outcome. Fast forward to where I think you're going to land. I actually believe that your defense is going to struggle in this game. I believe that the problem is your defense has shown that you have a weakness and a propensity to allow running quarterbacks to get the better of you, and but your defense is good enough to kind of fake it until you make it. Right. So I have this being, and I'm going to predict a little bit extra than just my score. So the final score that I am predicting for this is a 27-17 game for the Ravens. And I'm going to even take this a step further. I actually think that it's a 27-14 game. And I think that you guys tried to do the field goal, failed onside kick. And then the Ravens.
I see what you mean.
Okay. So I'm not just predicting. I'm literally mapping. Yeah. I'm mapping out what you're going to see at the end of this game. Okay. Because I think that you guys have an experienced head coach. That is the blueprint that experienced head coaches do to say, you see what you can do, but you take the guaranteed points now. and then you go for the kill or attempted touchdown to try to win the game or catch up or do whatever. That's my thought process. My thought process is that that's where you guys are at, and I think you guys just simply fall short. And I think the Ravens are I think they're just a bridge too far. I think that they have too many tools in their tool belt for your team to overcome at this stage of your growth. And I think that the biggest Achilles heel is running quarterbacks or mobile quarterbacks, because you're then forced to play the role of follow the QB. Mm-hmm. And then what the Ravens do to you is to say, oh, okay, good for you. Hey, Derrick Henry, you know how you wanted to play defensive end in high school? Well, thanks for playing running back. Kill him.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So this is the A versus B thing that you guys have to work on here. We obviously played the Ravens, and we saw what happened there. They kind of killed us. I don't necessarily think it's going to be that big of a blowout.
That bad. Yeah.
It's possible, though. It's possible.
It very well could. I just don't think this defense is capable of getting blown out.
No,
like that.
But the Broncos defense is so highly ranked as well that you wouldn't have expected that bad of a game either. But they did it anyway.
That's true. But they do have a rookie QB, and I think Herbert is. We saw it this last week. I feel like this game has a very eerily chance to go the same way this past game against the Bengals for us did, where we maybe get out to like a pretty solid lead, and then in that second half you see the Ravens start to come back, make it a game, and then it's going to be one of those, okay, do we come away with this one, or is this the one that we lose? I don't see us losing this game by more than 2 scores, simply because their pass defense is so atrocious that at any given time, and like I said, we saw it against the Bengals, Herbert can just dice people up. And at, in like a quick second, he can get a 14, 17 points like that. And I just don't think it's going to be, we're going to have a situation where Herbert goes like essentially 6 drives without doing anything. And that allows the Ravens to then go up by that, 17-point margin. I think it's going to be like
of the Ravens, though. And this
what
is the one thing that is, so the Steelers, the Ravens more than the Steelers, but the Ravens for sure. The Steelers are kind of like a close second. The Browns, as of late, have certainly fit this mold as well. So I'm just going to kind of group those kind of 3 together. Mm-hmm. Is their defensive lines, especially the interior fronts, are beefy, angry, which is 2 very important kind of things to merge together. And they are used to playing in, and they're built for the cold weather because they have to play in cold weather starting now and then moving forward to the rest of the season. So these guys are built to kind of withstand and sustain that type of weather and those types of drives. And what that means for our types of teams right now is that you play them early, and you can kind of, as long as you have good enough protection, you can kind of fake it and get around them and do some things and that kind of stuff. Although they've negated that a little bit with Lamar Jackson, because the dude is so mobile that he's a joker. Like he's the wild.
He's a wild card. Yep.
Yeah, he is. And whereas you're getting near the end of the season here, not the end, but you're kind of getting into that kind of second portion of the season.
Yeah.
And this is where those big bodies, this is where those big blockers, this is where those aggressive dudes really start to shine. This is where you start seeing defensive tackles and nose tackles start getting sacks. Mm-hmm. And you're like, how did that happen? Well, that's easy. The offensive centers and the guards are getting tired by the end of the season. And these nose tackles and these defensive players they're saying, I want my money, right? Like they're getting paid too. And so I just think that the Ravens are uniquely built. We spoke about this at the beginning of the season before we even started, game 1. Is the Ravens are uniquely built. They have an aggressive defense in the defensive line because that's how they're always built. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. Their backfield is not great, but that is totally irrelevant when your offensive line is not used to playing against guys that are built like that.
Yeah.
Like Alt, for example, he's a big dude. That's cool. What happens when they decide to shift a nose tackle who's 340 pounds against a really tall dude, and then Alt's like, wait a minute, I have really long arms, but the dude's still able to lean into me. My arms are sore now by the third quarter. Like, what's going on here? Like you're playing against guys that are built differently than what they're used to playing against. That's not a knock on Alt. That's not a knock on Slater. That's not a knock on your coach. It's just we need to be realistic in terms of the types of teams that we're used to going up against. Right. And you have to adjust quickly and accordingly. You have a head coach that's capable. I'm just not sure that after the Bengals game, your team has showed that they're able, willing, or capable of doing it.
Yeah.
And Rucci, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Alt is definitely a person that is made for this type of game in the cold weather. Again, he plays in the snow at Notre Dame, so he's built for this. So he's the same type of player that you were just talking about. So I don't see that happening to him. You know, Slater, I don't know much about his college background and so forth, where he came from, but
Northwestern.
He's North. Okay. So again,
I'm not saying they're not solid.
I just don't see it because he's built for this. I mean,
the other thing is too, like, at the end of the day, this game is here in California, so regardless. Yeah, I mean, we're at home, so like the weather, and I actually think I did.
It's not going to make a difference then.
Yeah, the weather is not going to be that much of a difference. I think this game will strictly come down to that is a good point, Richie. If we're able to keep Herbert upright, that is going to be a huge part of this game, because if he's on his back, if this is another recreation of the Browns where he's got 6 sacks at halftime, I don't see us being able to withstand that and the offensive pressure that the Ravens possess versus the Browns.
That's the other team that I mentioned earlier in my comment, there, right? The lines are just simply built differently. And I'm not saying you can't win. I'm not saying I don't think you're going to. I'm not saying you can't win. I'm just saying that I just think that, you know, we're all built to sustain and win with our divisions first. And then we start looking to the broader AFC,
to the conference,
Yep. And so the whole point is that, you know, you have to go pretty large scale bubble there to start getting up to saying, hey, how do we stack against the Ravens? Because, you know, stacking up against the Ravens may mean that you get your rear end handed to you by the Raiders or the Chiefs, right? And so you got to be super careful on how you build your teams and what you do and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, guys, we've had a great show tonight where we've kind of covered a lot of ground and done, covered a wide scale of things, including defensive line talk, offensive line talk, getting in some good digs on former players that are no longer on each of our teams, because I think that's important. I mean, for some of us, I suppose. And we've all made our score predictions. They are all on film and shall live on in infamy. So for those of you who are just joining the show, I encourage you to rewind. We had a lot of ground that we covered today. Go ahead and click that like button. That's the thumbs up below the video. If you're watching on X, click the heart icon. If you're watching on YouTube, there's that thumbs up. It really does help the show and allow us to reach other people that are NFL fans and AFC West fans just like you. And ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where the West Side is the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard.